Oh, you can say, yeah. I mean, yeah, I'll deal with this. If maybe Jeremy can get it, yeah. Thank Jeremy, here for a sec.
I don't know if the public meeting's for.
Yes. Okay, thank you. All right, I think we're good to go, right? Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 17th, 2025 council meeting. As a reminder, this meeting will be live streamed, recorded, and available on the internet by visiting the Town of Parry Sound's website at www.parrysound.ca. Prior to the open session, council met for a brief closed session, and it was moved by Councillor McCann and moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor McCann. The pursuant to section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 C25 as amended, Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound moved to a special meeting closed to the public in order to address a matter pertaining to C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land for municipal or local board purposes, evaluation of the Parry Sound Municipal Airport, and that meeting was had. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850 and the waterways traveled by the Métis of this region. May I have a mover and seconder for the agenda, please? Councillor Borneman and Councillor McCann seconding that the council agenda for June 17th, 2025 be approved. Any amendments? No. As circulated, all in favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest of the general nature thereof? No. Okay. May I have a mover and seconder for the minutes? Councillor Keith, Councillor McDonald, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held June 3rd, 2025 be approved as circulated. Any discussion or comments on those minutes? Councillor McCann.
I noticed that, and I'm just looking for the item number here right now. I'm sorry. With regards to the lighting on the bay, with the buoys lighting being lit up for navigation at night, and I had asked for a copy to be sent to the Canadian Coast Guard Auxiliary here. I noticed that that wasn't included in the minutes, and it's just at the risk of sounding like I'm nitpicking, I just wondered if the Coast Guard Auxiliary was getting a copy of that, because I know they'd be interested in that information.
The clerk says that it was sent to them.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. All in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. Next, we are going to hold a public meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a few minutes to hold a public meeting to hear any interested persons with regard to a proposed zoning amendment application under section 34 of the Planning Act. A mover and seconder, Councillor McCann, Councillor Keith. That we now adjourn the regular meeting and declare the public meeting open. All in favor? Yep. Thank you. Ms. Johnson, could you explain how the public was notified of the zoning amendment application Z2506 for Hills?
Yes, Mayor McGarvey, notice was given by prepaid first-class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 120 meters and posted on the property. Notice is therefore considered to be provided in accordance with the Planning Act.
Thank you. Mr. Rand, can you explain the purpose of the proposed zoning application?
Thank you, Your Worship. The subject lands are located at 12 and 14 Joseph Street, and the purpose of the proposed zoning application is to permit 91 apartment dwelling units instead of the currently permitted 80, in addition to a number of other site-specific regulations. If approved, the amending zoning bylaw would essentially amend the existing special provisions on the subject lands in order to add the following additional regulations. As noted, 91 apartment dwelling units, permit 1.09 parking spaces per unit instead of the required 1.25 parking spaces per unit. And just so council's aware, that would equate to 100 parking spaces instead of the required 114. Permit a reduced parking space length of 5.5 meters rather, instead of the required 6 meters. Permit a rear yard setback of 4 meters instead of the permitted 8.9 meters. And permit a minimum landscape buffer of 1.7 meters instead of the required 3 meters. With respect to the rear yard setback, the agenda that went out with the council package indicated 8.9 meters. We were in touch with the applicant after that agenda went out. However, the application did come in with a request for 4 meters, which is clearly shown on the drawing and staff's report. So we've made that change in the bylaw before council tonight. I would also note that all other regulations previously approved by council, including a holding provision, are still applicable, and that prior to the lifting of the holding provision, a traffic impact statement, functional servicing report, and site plan agreement are required. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. In accordance with the Planning Act, council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting the zoning amendment. If a public body who files an appeal of a decision of the council of the corporation, town of Parry Sound, in respect of a proposed zoning amendment does not make written submission to the council before it provides or refuses to provide the decision, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. Now, at this time, does anyone wish to speak in favor of this proposed application for zoning amendment? If so, please come forward, identify yourself by name and address if applicable. Welcome.
Sorry, my name is Jonathan Pock. I'm a senior planner at Morgan Planning and Development here on behalf of our client, Mrs. Hiltz, for the property located at 12 and 14 Joseph Street. I do have a brief presentation, which I'll run through just to give some background of the proposal, and further to Mr. Rand's brief presentation. The subject property, as mentioned, is located at 12 and 14 Joseph Street, shown in the orange star on the screen, generally located to the northwest of the intersection of Joseph Street and Isabella Street. Just would like to draw your attention to the existing residential development to the west, as well as the Parry Sound High School to the south, and the existing commercial development to the east of the property. This is an aerial image of the subject property. It is currently vacant. No buildings or structures, although shown. Those are all proposed to be removed as part of the application. As mentioned, the subject property is located at the probably should say northwest intersection of Isabella and Joseph Street. They're currently vacant. Both properties have a combined frontage of about 71.6 meters and have a combined lot area of about 0.64 hectares. As Mr. Rand mentioned, the proposed development before council this evening is for a 5-story, 91-unit apartment building. The developer has committed for about 15% of those units to be affordable as defined by the applicable standards. It is proposed to be serviced by municipal water and wastewater services and utilize the access off of Joseph Street. As Mr. Rand mentioned, there are 100 parking spaces proposed on site, with 7 visitor parking spaces proposed, inclusive of barrier-free parking spaces. There is bicycle storage and tenant lockers contained within that building for the tenants and usage of those users of the building. This is just an excerpt of the proposed site plan. Just would like to draw your attention, as council was likely familiar with the previous proposal. So the notable changes that have been made are the orientation of the building. If you'll recall that it was positioned in a north-south orientation, whereas this one's kind of along the northern interior portion of the property. The main change due to that was to position the building accordingly to utilize the entrance more efficiently, as well as to accommodate some of the parking area on site as it was previously proposed underneath the building. So we've shown an amenity area along the Joseph Street frontage. To the right on the floor plan is the interior lockers as well as the bicycle storage. And again, the 91 units would be comprised in that 5-story building. These are just some renderings from the architect, a little bit more fulsome than the last time this probably came before council. So a little bit more color added as well as the landscaping on site. Again, this is proposed to be designed to be dark sky compliant, which would adhere to the light standards. And we have submitted a lighting plan as part of our application. As council's likely familiar, this property and this proposed development was subject to a previous official plan amendment. That official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment have been approved by council. The previous official plan amendment number 6, as mentioned, was approved. The proposed development does conform to that previous amendment, and we're not requesting any relief from that. The special provision that applies to the subject property through that previous zoning amendment application is proposed to be revised to accommodate some of the site-specific zoning provisions that are being requested through the application. Kind of just touched on this, but the previous official plan amendment was earlier in April of this year, and it did provide for a policy context to allow for exemption of the maximum density that was prescribed in the official plan for this area. So the proposed development is not subject to those maximum density requirements. As Mr. Rand mentioned, the proposed zoning amendment before council this evening is to request some site-specific zoning standards to accommodate the proposed development, notably relate to the interior rear yard setback. The request this evening is from the required 8.9 meters to 4 meters. We're also requesting a reduction in parking, which has been supported through a traffic impact study included in our application submission. The other amendments requested are an increase in number of units that are proposed to be accommodated on site. Minimum required length of a parking space. We're requesting a slight reduction in the length that's the minimum that's required. There is a portion of the property that abuts the western interior lot line. We're requesting a reduced landscape buffer strip, and that only applies to the parking area, not to the building location. And again, the holding provision is proposed to be carried through and applied to the subject property. And that is conditioned on a site plan agreement, the completion of a traffic impact study, as well as a functional servicing report. This slide is just a zone matrix that was included in our planning report. Just wanted to draw your attention to the items in red, which are the items that are requesting relief from the previously approved zoning bylaw amendment application. Included in our application submission was a planning justification report addressing the provincial planning statement, the town of Parry Sound's official plan, and zoning bylaw. Also included in our application submission was site plan, the architectural elevations, which I showed you a clip of, the functional servicing report, including the stormwater management design, the traffic impact study and lighting plan. As I mentioned, the holding provision that's proposed to be carried through is required to be lifted upon completion of the traffic impact study, which we have completed as part of this application. The functional servicing report, which we have also included in our application submission, and the execution of the site plan agreement, which we have applied for the site plan application concurrently with the zoning. So just in conclusion, the zoning bylaw amendment before council is to facilitate a 5-story apartment building that is to be comprised of 91 units. It's proposed to be serviced by municipal water and wastewater services. as detailed in our planning justification report, included in the agenda package, demonstrates consistency and conformity with those applicable planning documents. That concludes my presentation. If there are any questions, I'd do my best to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Usually at this session, we listen to the public and any questions that the public might have of are recorded, and then the information is compiled. So thank you. Is there anyone at this time, anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the proposed application for zoning amendment? Is there anyone on the line that we're aware of? No? I'll ask one more time. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of the proposed application for zoning amendment? Nope. Okay. At this time, then, does anyone wish to speak in opposition to this proposed application for zoning amendment? I'll ask one more time. Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to this proposed application for zoning amendment? Nope. Okay. Mr. Rand, have there been any letters received as a result of the notice?
Comments received by the building department indicate that the current grade of 14 Joseph Street is higher than that of 12, and no ramps or slopes were shown on the preliminary plans. It is anticipated that blasting for parking and building areas would be required. It was also noted that the lots would need to be merged on title, and I would add further that that would be a requirement through the site plan agreement. And the building department has also noted that there does appear to be an existing site plan agreement on file, and that's something that obviously we would have to remove the existing site plan and prior to finalizing the proposed site plan agreement. Comments received by the operations department indicate that previous storm sewer easements need to be verified and the location of drainage pipes need to be confirmed during the site plan stage of development. Comments received by the finance department indicate that taxes will need to be paid prior to the lots merging on title. Comments received by the wastewater department indicate that there are inadequate sanitary services at the frontage of these lots. And comments received by the fire chief, the fire prevention officer, and the Ministry of Transportation all indicate no concerns. And no other comments were received on this application. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Barnabas.
Mr. Rand, a few months ago, the folks from Lakeland attended here and indicated that they had concerns with respect to electricity hydro provision in that end of town right now. Have we saw it, or did they provide any comment in that regard?
Through your worship to Councillor Borneman, we did circulate Lakeland. We did double check that they were circulated on that. We have not had the conversation with them about that specific issue. The applicant was at the last council meeting. We did have a discussion about that specific issue. And I can commit the council to following up on that to see if they've made the connection or if we need to make the connection to Lakeland to ensure that there is sufficient capacity.
Mover and seconder to close. Thank you, Mr. Rand. Mover and seconder to close, Councillor McDonald and Councillor Ashford. That we do now declare the public meeting closed. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, we're back to regular business. Questions of staff? Councillor McCann?
Not sure who to address this to. I was asked today about the possibility of decals on the sidewalks downtown to give some brief directions to the washrooms. Apparently, a lot of the merchants on the main street and I guess on the secondary streets are having people come in asking to use the washrooms, and so one particular lady was telling me that she thought Gravenhurst had a good idea with decals on the sidewalks. So I know that our washrooms, where they're placed, if you're new to town, you don't know where they are, it's understandable. Um, I guess I'm just wondering if the town or the DBA has any plans of making things a little bit more indicative for or explanative for the visiting public.
Through your worship. So we do have some signage in certain locations with QR codes that will bring you to a map that gives you directions to the washrooms. So they're utilized at the Tuesday market in particular up in that area of Market Square Park. So I mean, there is an opportunity to expand that. I would suggest they're probably a little more robust than if we put something on the sidewalk, they're going to be subjected to our winter control measures and we'll probably be redoing them annually if we were to go that way. So perhaps there's an opportunity to not necessarily be the same size that we have everywhere downtown. That might be a little imposing, but we could probably come up with a smaller version that could be placed around the downtown if there's the need for some directions to the washrooms.
Just as a follow-up, do any of the merchants downtown make it a practice to put some sort of a signage in their window to say that their washrooms are for customers only, but here's a map a simple map that shows where the public washrooms are located? Does the DBA support that or promote it?
Through your worship, I can't speak to that directly, but I can certainly have the conversation with Ms. Denman and see, you know, if we have the graphic already available, perhaps the merchants would like to take advantage of that.
It's great. Thanks very much.
Counselor Keith?
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for Mr. Cairns. I'd like to know, what would you say the status is of the public washroom downtown now? Are we up and operating?
Through your worship, I wish I had better news for you. We are not, but we are much closer. The mechanisms are not simple. There are bladders inside the toilets themselves that are controlled by circuit boards, essentially, that control the voltage, that control the flush mechanism. And we believe now we've identified the issue and should have parts within the next 2 days, and hopefully they're open before the weekend.
Well, I hope so, because it starts to make me think, would we have been further ahead, seeing the amount of time the washrooms have been closed, and given our season now, in addition, whether we should have just looked at putting in a different toilet in the meantime, at least, so that this issue would at least be rectified for our busy season.
Through your worship. So staff certainly did explore that. Unfortunately, the lead time in obtaining the stainless steel version of the toilets that are highly recommended in that location is rather lengthy. So this is the most expedited route for us right now.
Thank you. I have one other question. No, work is happening in the Isabella Street, Wood, Marion, that area, right? And the concern that has been expressed to me by some of the local taxpayers is that they didn't feel that they were really informed as to what the exact, shall we say, diagram of the operation is going to happen, so that they could see this end product. And I was wondering, was there an information session that the public could attend? And could you advise there, please?
Through your worship, no, we didn't. We don't typically on our reconstruction projects have public information sessions. Now, there was information delivered door to door to the residents in the area. We have had a conversation, and there's a new graphic that should be out this week that gives an overlay and should really well explain it well what the final outcome is meant to be.
I guess what I'm asking is then, with this graphic, will the public be able to comment? Because I'm just thinking of some of the other projects that have occurred in town, and there was an information session. So I just kind of, I wonder, since it didn't happen, is there any way that the public can make any comments in that area? Whether it's because somehow the new diagram, shall we say, is going to impact their property, and they may have actually positive suggestions.
Through your worship. So the project was engineered and tendered and awarded and is under construction. So certainly if folks want to communicate with us, we would welcome that. I would suggest that undertaking design changes while you're under construction can cause some issues, both fiscally and operationally during a construction project, but we're certainly happy to communicate with the folks. If there's something that we can do to improve things reasonably, we will do that. I would note that it's a very challenging job. It's very constrained. We are improving the corner at Isabella and Wood in particular. We are also having to navigate the experience of working with both national railways throughout their road allowance. But I would suggest to the public we'll see some big improvements in the road on the other side of the tracks as well. So.
Last follow-up, I believe it'll be the last follow-up to that question, is so the schematic drawing that is going to be soon coming out, how will people be able to access will there be like a paper copy besides maybe something on website?
Through your worship. So there will be a hand delivery of probably an 11 by 17 graphic to each of the households within the construction zone. Our thoughts were to print a larger version here to have available in the lobby at Town Hall, as well as have it available on the website.
Thank you. Councillor Ashford.
Just in keeping with questions to Mr. Kearns, on Father's Day, we went out before church and we're kind of walking up Main Street, and the planters, you know, that have gotten so many compliments this year, were just looking like wonderful, like we're ready in spring. And then by the time we went and got ice cream down at the waterfront and came walking back up the hill, the sun and the heat had just started to make them look sadder than normal. And I thought for that kind of few hours time, things can really change for those planters. So I was wondering if you could kind of outline, like, how exactly does our staff take care of them? Like, are there little water basins inside of them, or kind of how does that all play out? And what can people do if they kind of notice that, you know, these planters they're starting to look a little rough, because, you know, it could just be the time of day or that kind of thing, but at the same time, they're looking so good. How do we ensure those things continue to look good all the way to the end of the season?
Through your worship. So staff currently are on a schedule to water each of the baskets 3 times per week. So they're on a schedule. Don't quote me on the exact volume. I believe it's around 5 liters per basket was the recommendation of the supplier per watering. Now that's a baseline. It really depends on the weather, as you mentioned. Unfortunately, hanging baskets are subjected to the extremes, whether it's the intense heat. We have a bit of a heat sink in our downtown as well. There's not a lot of green space. There's lots of asphalt and buildings that increase the heat. Wind is also a bit of an enemy. It helps wick away the moisture in a hurry. So certainly staff will keep an eye on it. And I think the good news is they've rebounded. If they were wilting that afternoon, they're no longer wilting. I don't think anyway, from what I've observed. So certainly it'll really depend. And I do know we're looking at some pretty extreme temperatures today and moving into next week. So we may have to modify that, and staff will keep an eye on it.
Yep. Just to follow up with that too, if I recall right, we have one employee that's going to be paying close attention to the downtown throughout the summer. Is that on their checklist to kind of keep an eye for those plants and call in a 911? They need water. They need water. Or is that employee, is that within their realm of what they're doing?
Through your worship, we certainly encourage all of our staff to keep an eye on all of our assets. So it doesn't have to be one in particular that raises the flag, so to speak. So we're all keeping an eye on it, and certainly if someone notices it, please let us know.
Councillor McCann?
Well, this would be for Mr. Kearns. A couple of weeks ago, I circulated an email on some technology that helps monitor for vandalism in public places. And with the technology that we have today, I'm just wondering, is there not an easier way to sort of monitor the public washrooms? If you've got a camera outside the washroom, and if it's motion detected or whatever, and it timestamps when it sees somebody entering. What I was reading, I did a little bit of research into this, was that technology today has developed all kinds of sensors that can go into walls and appliances and things that detect when something's being damaged or punched out or whatever. And these sensors, in turn, could timestamp the activity, and it would tie in with what the camera sees. So, you've got a picture of somebody going in, you've got the sensors telling you that something's not right here, and it makes it a little easier to to go after those who've done the damage. Is that something that we could look at in the near future? Is the technology there yet? Is it affordable?
Through your worship, I think you maybe touched on it right with your last comment. I'm certain there's all sorts of technology that could assist. The cost benefit analysis of that would be an interesting exercise. I might also suggest that identifying an individual doesn't necessarily mean that individual has the means to pay restitution, should they be found responsible for it. So you may spend an awful lot of time identifying someone to end up at the same point in repairing the damage. So I'm not I just have a feeling there could be some instances where you'd run into that particular issue. So I can't answer that question directly. I don't know enough. I know there are an awful lot of sensors and there's an awful lot of technology, but the cost benefit would have to be something of an exercise for us to determine whether that's would be advantageous.
That's understandable. I just think of what it costs the town in terms of money and downtime and service to the people who live here and who visit here, that the washrooms are shut down. I look at this as maybe being a bit deterrent more than another means of punishing those. But still, it just seems like it seems to me with what it's costing to repair the damage year in and year out, that this technology in fact would pay for itself in due time. Just running it up the flagpole there.
Councillor Ashford?
Next question is for Mr. Rand. We've had the exciting announcement that a week from Wednesday we'll be having the draft 2 of the waterfront master plan, having a information night there at the Stocky, and we got that plan out and have had a ton of feedback over the last 2 information nights and public outreaches and all those kind of things. I was wondering if you could speak to some of the changes that have been made from draft 1 to draft 2.
Through your worship, the Councillor Ashford. We did receive the draft. We're pretty excited about that ahead of the Waterfront Master Plan event next week, the open house. So staff have provided a number of comments that were implemented. There were also a number of, I'd say, mainly minor changes to the arrangement of the document, updated information, such as developments being proposed in the harbor area and that kind of thing as new information comes available. A number of the maps and drawings were updated and tweaked based on the feedback received. The largest impact you'll see is if you look at the table of contents, there are two new sections that were added to the document. One of them being the master plan document. A lot of that information was in the previous document, but it's been beefed up and given its own section. And then the largest change you'll see is the implementing policies, and that's section 6. And these implementing policies consist of 28 recommended official plan policies for inclusion in the official plan. So those, not to get into too much details, but they relate to like parking, land use designations, tying the waterfront to downtown, dark sky. So bringing home some of those questions that have been heard at the public open houses and actually making very specific policy recommendations for implementation through the OP.
Councillor Keith?
Well, Mr. Rand is there. Maybe you'd like to do the marketing of when the meeting is next week?
Thank you, Your Worship, to everybody, and Councillor Keith, thanks for the question. The Waterfront Master Plan Open House is next Wednesday, starting at 6 p.m. We do have information on our website. We have a Waterfront Master Plan page, which contains previous versions of the Waterfront Master Plan, information about what Waterfront Master Plans are, renderings, and those kinds of things. Or if anyone needs more information, they can reach out to planning at parrysound.ca. Thank you.
Thank you. I will get there as soon as I can. I have a public health meeting and they have one a year in Parry Sound and it happens to be that night. So, so I'll be there as soon as I can. All right, we're done questions. Correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
Yes, Your Worship, there are 5 items of correspondence this evening. The first is from Fancy Pants Charities. Noting that the 2024 Jim Bisson Senior Memorial Golf Tournament was a huge success, raised $32,000. It's for cancer research, and Fancy Pants Charities is sending this through James Bisson and the team to the town of Parry Sound and presumably other organizations looking for sponsorship. And there's a sponsorship package should the town wish to be involved in that. The Parry Sound Area Chamber of Commerce, signed by Chris McDonald, Executive Director, sent a letter of thanks for the contribution from the town of $7,980 to the Chamber's 2025 budget. The third item is from Glenna Felsman, writing on behalf of and with the permission of her cousin Glenn Little, who lives on Joseph Street and is confined to a wheelchair. Ms. Felsman is advocating that the town of Parry Sound make wheelchair accessible transportation in the town. She cites, particularly in the wintertime, it's very difficult for people confined to wheelchairs to get out or rainy weather, and they have to cancel events. And while there is community support services, that seems to be confined to medical appointments and not for average day-to-day things around town. Fourth item is from Minister of Education, the Honorable Paul Calandra. He's writing in response to a resolution that the town of Parry Sound passed a few meetings ago regarding reconsideration of the closing of McDougall School. Mr. Calandra was in Parry Sound the third week, on a Friday, the third week in May, and did a tour of the new JK to grade 12 school. And so he makes some comments in his letter with reference to that, saying that he wishes that the board to focus on ensuring the school is ready to receive students from grades 7 to 12 and childcare this September, and that McDougall Public School will remain open until the Christmas break to ensure that elementary school students, kindergarten through grade 6, have a place if the school is not ready to receive all of the students. And the K-6 transition to the new school will be confirmed around Thanksgiving time. Mr. Calandra also emphasized the importance to the board of working in partnership with the town to ensure that the construction, the permitting, the fire safety and site planning processes are all done, and to finalize all this as soon as possible. And he makes mention as well that McDougall School is slated to support access to French language education in this region. The last letter is from Wasauksing Lands Incorporated. They're referencing some work on their parking lot as early as 2022 that Hall Construction was to do. But as they were requesting locates, it was discovered that there was some sewer system in the parking lot belonging to the town. And so the town took over that. There was work done and the parking lot was paved over. And Ms. Gail Pegamagabo, who's president of Wasauksing Lands Incorporated, indicates that the puddle seems to be worse in the parking lot. Rainwater forms is posing safety risks, especially in the winter when it freezes. It had to be repaired as part of their insurance inspection, and they are then therefore looking to the town for some support in that. And this has also been forwarded to Public Works. And that concludes the correspondence.
Okay, thank you. We have one scheduled deputation tonight, and that's Bill Mardame, Gardens Retirement Developments Incorporated. Welcome. And do you have a presentation or is it just verbal? Oh, microphone.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. I was going to read the one-page letter, but if you feel that everybody has read it, then I could save some time by not doing it and could answer any questions at your discretion.
Do you want, for the public's sake, do you want to just give a very high-level synopsis of what you wrote?
Yeah. So I can just read the whole thing in 2 minutes if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We are the owners of Gardens of Parry Sound Retirement Residence at the north end of town adjacent to Canadore College. We operate 105 rental suites for the seniors of Parry Sound and area. This project was developed in 2 phases on land purchased from the town about a dozen years ago. We wish to augment the services to the seniors of the town with the addition of row bungalows on our current land, and plus the development of multi-story townhouses on adjacent land, hopefully to be purchased from the town. The land is a residual right-of-way land from the former Highway 69, which was abandoned after the construction of Highway 400 to bypass the town. There are 2 parcels with a total area of 2 acres. The topography is very varied, from small plateau land at the south end, which is only about 1/3 of an acre. And then in the middle, there's environmental lands, which a large drainage ditch runs through it. And then there's a very narrow northern part. And we consider that only about 1/3 at the southern portion is buildable on this site. Our site sketches have determined that there's potential for about 10 townhouses to be developed on this land. And a copy of the sketch was included with our rezoning application last fall. We're working with our neighbor, Canadore College, on the potential of including some of their housing needs in this project. And if there's market potential, we would certainly augment the number of suites. But again, this is limited by the small building area that's on this small piece of land. We commissioned an appraisal of the land by Parry Sound Muskoka Appraisals Limited and forwarded a copy to your planning department last month. We submit that there is substantial due diligence work to do, like soil report, environmental, topographical surveys, and pre-development work, conceptual site plans, market reports, plus a rezoning required to bring the site to a buildable state. And we estimate that the cost of this work is in the order of $70,000 to $100,000. So we are prepared to offer $250,000 for the purchase of the land, and then we would undertake this work that I just mentioned. And that we respectfully request the council consider this offer, and we're prepared to start serious work as soon as an agreement of purchase and sale is completed. Thank you, and be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilor McDonald?
Yes, thank you for your presentation and letter there. I mean, I fully support this initiative. Particularly, I'm very intrigued with the partnership with Canada College. So it'd be great to see some of their needs possibly met as far as the residents is concerned. So not really any questions, but just wanted to commend you on the initiative and wish you all the best moving forward.
Any further questions? I'm not seeing any questions, so thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Next are reports. So we'll start with Councilor McDonald tonight.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, fellow councillors, staff, public. On June the 10th, I visited the Canada College campus up in North Bay in conjunction with local stakeholders here from Parry Sound. We toured their new daycare center that opened 187 new spots at a location that Canada College had purchased and is running in conjunction with an ECE program on site to learn and observe, as well as lease out the majority of the building to the Lindsay Well Daycare Center. This might be a good opportunity to duplicate something similar here with Canadore and key stakeholders. Also, the Village at Canadore is also a new groundbreaking health and wellness facility in North Bay that we got to tour at the same time, located at the Canadore campus on College Drive. A first of its kind facility in Canada, blending Indigenous, Eastern, and Western healing traditions. It functions as a living lab, students-led clinics, and classrooms where health professions students provide services to the wider community, especially the seniors. The phase 2 development includes 176 bed intergenerational residence for seniors with assisted living and transitional care, fostering live-in collaboration between students and older adults. So the next meeting we'll be having probably sometime in July back here in Parry Sound with Canadore and some of the key stakeholders to discuss opportunities for the Parry Sound District. June 11th, I attended a DBA meeting. Talk about the beautification continues in the downtown core and down Bay Street. Hanging baskets, the new banners, flower beds are now all in. DBA Beautification Committee has also been installing new planters on the town dock as well. They have already had some vandalism with some of the flowers, so that's disappointing, but they're a tenacious bunch and they keep rejuvenating the planters as needed. They're looking at updating their policies and procedures. We had an introduction to the Town of Parry Sound's new community engagement / Deputy Clerk Sally O'Connor. Conversations surrounded streamlining social media efforts, and the appreciation of the Town of Parry Sound continues to develop a more robust social media and communication presence. And as was mentioned earlier, the final draft of the Waterfront Master Plan will be reviewed at the next open house on Wednesday, June 25th, 6 p.m. at the Charles W. Stockey Center. All are welcome to attend and provide feedback. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Councillor Borneman?
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. On June 10th, I attended a meeting of the Parry Sound Airport Commission. Movements are up, fuel sales and cafe sales are up. We extended the contract of our marketing intern until the end of the calendar year. Work continues on an RFP to commission a airport master plan. So things are moving along as intended. June 12th, I attended IceCap's trade show at the Stockey Center. There were a number of vendors there with all sorts of interesting gadgets that will soon be, I think, more popular in our community. Enbridge is actually looking into hosting a free half-day seminar, we'll call it, that may interest our staff with respect to beyond the building code, ways to make homes and buildings more energy efficient. I'm sure that'll be posted as we go on. I'd like to notify council and the public that the online AGM for Belvedere that was scheduled for tomorrow afternoon has now been canceled for the time being and will be rescheduled in future. And Mr. Mayor, in closing, I guess I'd ask for council's support. I think, Mr. Thompson's reported a number of times about the spate of accidents, fatalities, injuries, road closures on Highway 69 North. I think it's would be in our best interest and the traveling public's best interest if a letter were sent to our MPP and the usual suspects, encouraging the province with getting on with finalizing, finishing the four laning between Parry Sound and Sudbury.
Yep.
So that could be added to the agenda. I'd appreciate it.
Support for, just show of hands for adding that to the agenda. That'd be good. Thank you. Good. Councilor McCann.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow councilors, staff, and public. A few things to report on this evening. Sunday afternoon, the 8th of June, I attended the 295th McPherson Squadron Royal Canadian Air Cadets 81st Annual Ceremonial Review was held at the Kinsman Park on Parry Sound Drive. The reviewing officer was Ray Pavlov this year. There was the inspection, of course, of the squadron, followed by the presentation of awards and remarks made by dignitaries and guests. Patricia Coles was bestowed with the Board of Directors commendation from the Air Cadets League of Canada for her work contributing to the local level in support of our local squadron over the countless years. Following the ceremonies, people were invited to observe some of the various displays. Note of congratulations to the entire squadron on another successful year. I enjoy taking this event in. It's wonderful to see that the direction and the discipline and the good work that the organization is doing and the kids responding to it. Wednesday morning, June 11th, I attended the Parry Sound Public Library monthly board meeting held at the library. Our 2024 audit was presented by BDO and was later accepted and approved by the board. The treasurer's report for April was reviewed and approved. There was more discussion on construction over the downstairs auditorium building exit and stairwell to prevent tolerating unwelcome occurrences and undesirable behavior in that location. The library has a number of summer programs coming up, and as always, be sure to check its website, parrysoundlibrary.com. Speaking of the library, there's an interesting gift dropped off recently. The Parry Sound Public Library staff and board of management were very delighted and pleasantly surprised at the return of North Star editions from 1874 to 1878 as they were delivered to the library. The unknown donor simply stated that these belonged in the public realm, and that's exactly what is planned for the editions. The very first edition dated Tuesday, October 6th, 1874. And all the other editions will be handed over to the West Parry Sound District Museum for digitizing and professional storage, ensuring proper preservation. There were actually 4 folios containing the copies and more than 140 years of age. So the paper held up very well, and whoever had them kept them in good shape. So in the early editions, it would seem likely that there weren't a lot of local reporters on the streets, with papers merely having a lot of national and international news and advertising from local merchants. So considering the number of years, yes, the papers are in good shape. and they will be turned over to the museum if they're not already for digitizing. Yesterday afternoon, I attended the Waterfront Advisory Committee meeting held right here in council chambers. There were discussions over the upcoming waterfront master plan open house, as you've heard about this evening. It's scheduled for next Wednesday from 6 to 7:30 at the Stockey Center. The public is invited to attend this final public review of the final draft. However, public input is still encouraged. The Waterfront Advisory Committee also discussed future use and ideas in and around the Seguin River Parquet, now that the Chippewa is no longer there. The committee also heard that we could expect a final report on the outcome of the Wabano Bridge this summer. There was brief discussion on signage and advertising at the town docks, with more on that coming up later in the months to follow. And we also talked and got an update on the repair of the town docks. And just one final announcement here, a reminder that the West Parry Sound District Museum Annual General Meeting is coming up next week, Thursday afternoon, June 8th, 5 o'clock. No, that's not June 8th, I'm sorry, but it is next Thursday, a week from from this Thursday. The public is invited to attend. Sorry about that. This will immediately be followed by the official exhibit opening titled Lights of the Bay. And again, the public is cordially invited to see the unveiling running through to October this year. Lights of the Bay dives into the changing methods and technologies used when navigating the waters of Georgian Bay, and it highlights the history of the lighthouses that light up the shoals and shores of the Parry Sound District and which guide travelers to safety. Interesting note to pass along, that fact that this exhibition was prompted by a collaborative project with the Township of the Archipelago to temporarily store artifacts from the Point of Barrow Lighthouse while it is being under renovation. So check out the museum's website for more information at museumontowerhill.com. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashford?
Thank you. I want to apologize. I wasn't able to attend in person the last council meeting, so I have a bit of an older item to share. One of our local residents, Pamela Muma, who also used to work with Mayor McGarvey, was received an award for outstanding teaching on May 21st. So she was selected by quite a few different people nominated and celebrated that day. So it was really nice to see something like that happening in our community, that it was from here all the way down to Bradford. They had all kinds of teachers in the pot, and Miss Muma was the one that won it. So if you happen to see her, make sure that you, or awarded it, make sure that you talk to her and tell her, congratulate her on receiving that. Second, we recently attended a industrial park meeting with our MPP Graydon Smith. We wanted to discuss ways that we could take a look at the businesses in our industrial park and get people in there quicker and cut red tape, which is a priority for the provincial government. And there are many great ideas put forward to help support growth, our economy in Parry Sound. I also attended recently the public information night on some of the development on Louisa Street. It was held by the developer, which is a little bit different for us. And it was pretty well attended. They did it at the Bobby Orr, and there were lots of input given from residents, and they were copying them down and adjusting their plans real quickly. So it was kind of nice to see them putting themselves out there and making sure that they were communicating with all the people around the area. And then lastly, I stood in for Mayor McGarvey at our last pool committee meeting, and thank God I didn't have to say very much. There wasn't too many things on the agenda for me, so we went through. And I've been kind of giving updates every couple of weeks at council on the progress at the pool. We can see it as we drive by and how fast it's going. And they talked about all those kind of things as well. But one of the things that really I really noticed that this meeting was, we're kind of at the point where the pool is becoming a thing. It's becoming its own, because it's not just this making a building and a place, it's all of the organization, planning and stuff that has to happen around that to be able to have, because you got your physical thing, but how the heck do you run a thing like that? And all that's kind of coming together. I know a lot of our staff have been doing I would say a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of maybe extra work that wasn't anticipated. Ms. Phillips, I know has been plugging away as well as our CAO. So it was kind of a meeting where a lot of the things are kind of moving into this entity that now at some point we're going to say, instead of it being all different people contributing to making it a place or contributing to making this thing happen, I think we're going to be calling it a thing, and it's going to be its own thing, and it was just kind of a nice little, a lot of the little things that happened were just all those little check boxes to make it its own little entity that is taking off. So thank you very much. That's everything for me.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Keith?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow councilors, staff, and the public. I attended the Ice Cap workshop recently to get a better idea of how the municipalities, both in town and around, are being involved in this green initiative to make us a net zero. And I found that very informative, and the fact that we are charging ahead and more ideas are being presented and more efforts are being made in that way. We certainly, the town of Parry Sound has shown some of the things that they're doing. And I think it shows that, again, we are working towards making ourselves more green and more net zero. There was the trade show in the afternoon, and it was nice to see the participant there and the number of presenters that were there so that you could ask questions. I also attended the Tower Hill Gardens recently. I wanted to see the fine job that Ann Barsart and all the volunteers involved have been doing on the gardens there. And certainly the annual flowers look very pretty. And it's so nice to see, because of the way how the lilacs were planted, some were still in bloom, and so the fragrance and to see them was quite lovely. And frankly, I like seeing the little goldfish in the pool all swimming around. So I'm grateful there isn't a bunch of cats sitting there also wanting to have a little feed. Certainly that area, I think at times when a tourist, for example, or somebody maybe in another municipality says, I got to put in some time, what could I do? And, I don't really want to spend money. I think more of us should automatically think of places like going up to the Tower Hill because it's so peaceful and beautiful, or our parks, including Yvonne Williams Park, which I think was such a generous donation there of the lady that gave that, and how that is just a beautiful park that you can easily spend a lot of time in, just even sitting and just observing. I also did check out regularly the development of the Wabano Beach Playground, which is about to be open shortly. And I think that it's certainly has all the equipment that therefore is a disability ability for people. So people with disabilities will have the ability to come and use that playground. I think that is really great. I think that is really proud. We should be really proud of our community being so forward thinking in all of these areas. And naturally, if council hadn't supported this, we wouldn't be in this boat, so to speak. And that's kind of like a pun for this area. Councillor McCann has already mentioned about the Waterfront Advisory Committee, so I won't be repetitive there. And then I did two last exercises myself because I thought it would be a means of gathering more information that could be of benefit for our community. On the weekend, I was down in Belleville, and when I was down there, I attended their wellness center, which is an arena, what is also an arena. And in that area, it's quite a large complex. There's 4 ice pads, there's a walking track, there's a 8-lane pool. It's a beautiful facility. And 2 things that I really noticed, because I was also interested in the programming, so I did talk to staff about their programming and how actually they had in there, so it shows they're oriented towards green initiatives also, because 2 of their Zambonis are electric, and they also, of course, have a gas operated one. So it shows that, you know, Parry Sound again is moving forward in the areas that we need to, because if you look at the size of our population compared to Belleville, well, you know, you got to say we really are doing a great job there. And so I found that center really bright and cheerful, and I know from the renderings and hopefully the wellness center that and cultural center that will be developed in this area will have that same idea. But they were able to give me some ideas of programmings, and sometimes you don't have to start from scratch and reinvent the wheel. Sometimes contacting those that have already done some of these things that can be of benefit to both the taxpayer and the people who are using that facility is a good idea. But one of the other thoughts that I had about the center there is that, you know, in our area, well, for example, Parry Sound, you say you're playing hockey for just one season. And when you see these little gaffers yesterday, when it was definitely 25 anyways, and numerous young people going out to, you know, carrying their bags and that, and they're going into the center to play hockey, it just shows you how that the more you're able to do whatever that exercise is, obviously, the more proficient that you're going to be. And the last thing I did today, which I found helpful before I got here, is I stopped at the Sterling Library. And I do have some interest in libraries, having been on the board for 8 years. And what I found helpful again was they gave me a couple of new ideas for programming that they do at their library that I believe we do not do here. So I'll be talking to the CEO of the library here to advise them of these ideas, because I found both of them were cost efficient, and at the same time I saw them as something that I believe the taxpayer or a patron would really be interested in using. So I think anytime when you go somewhere, if you're able to look at other municipal entities and see how they operate, sometimes you can come up with ideas that can be really beneficial to your own community without maybe paying a consultant fee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashford, thank you for stepping in for that meeting for me. I was on my way back from Ottawa, basically. Anyway, thank you. Council, staff, and public, June 5th at 6:30 p.m. I attended the new volunteer firefighter recruit celebration, which was held at the Foley Community Center. And my son Michael graduated as a new recruit, and he's a volunteer firefighter in Carling Township. June 6th, I attended the Lakeland Power shareholders meeting in Bracebridge. We were given an update on the different departments and how they're progressing. The audit was presented and passed, and our dividend will be unchanged, so it's a good, healthy amount. June 11th, I attended the AMO's Rural Healthy Democracy Project, which was held in El Monte, Ontario. El Monte is over near Ottawa. It was a sold-out conference with great topics about encouraging people to run for public office, connecting with the public, and the session that I spoke in the afternoon, it had to do with connecting with students in the school system and developing a program which allows students to understand how government works, how important it is to vote, and that protecting a democracy, a democratic system is extremely important. June 12th was the regular Parry Sound District Social Services Board meeting, and should all have received your updates, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. June 13th, I attended a meeting with a developer that was putting forward a project to staff. June 15th, I attended the Sunday service at St. James United Church. It was a busy morning. On behalf of council, I presented a plaque to the congregation marking the 100th anniversary of the United Church of Canada and St. James United Church as well, although the St. James Church has been around for much longer than that, but it was a Methodist church before that. There was also an official opening of the barrier-free entrance and the dedication of the church bell at the church as well. St. James and the Mary Street Center volunteers have done amazing work to help support people in our community and the surrounding area. And today, June 17th, I attended a special DSAB meeting to receive and approve the audit. And that's my report. Moved by Councilor McDonald, second by Councilor Borneman. The council awards the proposal for the valuation of the Parry Sound Area Municipal Airport to Capital Assist Valuation Incorporated. Any discussion? No. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 9.3. Oh, Councilor Borneman. Okay. 10.4.1 or 9.4.1? Which one did you say? 10.4.1. 10.4.1. Okay. Council's agreeable to move 10.4.1 up. Okay, thank you. Moved by Councilor McCann, second by Councilor McDonald, the bylaw number 2025-7517, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2004-4653, the zoning bylaw as amended for 12/14 Joseph Street, and legally described as part of Lot 20, Concession A, being part of Park Lot A, Plan 91, and Part 1, Plan 42R 4989 in the town of Parry Sound, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? It's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councilor McDonald, second by Councilor McCann, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Councilor Borneman, McCann, and then Keith.
Mr. Rand, I guess my question is this normal where we have a public meeting and the bylaw the same evening? And what opportunity do the public have to comment in those instances?
Through your worship, to Councillor Borneman, not completely unusual, but it's not a regular practice. In this case, we made the determination that the decision on the bylaw could come at the same night as the public hearing, given that there was a recent zoning and official plan amendment. I would note that no public comments were received on this application. And additionally, there were no comments received tonight on the application. Should there have been concerns prior to the public meeting, we would have recommended deferral at that point, but members of the public have had their chance to provide input at this point.
Councilor McCann?
Thank you. I'm not sure that I mean, I've seen the site plan, but I'm curious as to what it's going to look like with the exit and entrance onto Joseph Street from the from the development. Will there be individual lanes for incoming and outgoing? Is that I imagine with all the traffic we're expecting with the high school and the pool, things that are going on in the mall, the gardens, the north end is getting a little busy. And so I could see that being a bit of a bottleneck there. Because if you've got 91 residents or residential units, that's got to be a bit of a concern from time to time.
Through your worship, to Councillor McCann, I just put the proposed site plan at this point up on the screen. That, at this point, it's a conceptual site plan. There was a traffic input impact study, or is a traffic impact study rather underway. So through the site plan process, that location and design will be peer reviewed through our engineering peer review and reviewed through the Public Works Department as well for things like safety and capacities and those kinds of things. Not something we look at in a lot of detail at the zoning stage, but there was review from our operations department who indicated no concerns, but also indicated that they would be looking at further detail at the site plan stage, and they will have input through the TIS and the peer review.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Rand, I think while Councilor McCann has asked that question, it's fair enough to say that the access and egress from the new school is going to change as well. That there's not going to be, I believe, quite so many accesses or egresses. It's going to be more controlled.
To your worship, that's correct. And obviously the bus drop off that's being used on this property, I think will cease in a few weeks. But again, as you noted, the site plan process is well underway for the or being implemented through the school as it's being constructed. There was a formal peer review. And yes, there's, I'd say, better entrances, more controlled entrances, and a lot of input was put into the school entrances and egress, ingress
Yeah.
through the site plan stage.
Okay. I thought it was a fair enough, just to complement what Councilor McCann's concern is and that sort of thing, because there is going to be a change in that area with regard to that. Councilor Keith.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of questions. I'm not clear on the parking spots. Is it going to be 4 disabled spots of the 7 visitor spots, or is it 4 disabled spots, 7 visitor spots of the 100? So in other words, we got 11 designated spots for people who are not in a unit.
Through your worship, Councillor Keith, there are 100 spaces. Of those spaces, 4 are accessible. We generally do not have a specific number for visitor spaces. We would have a number of spaces overall, and it would be up to the operator of the building to determine assignments of those spaces, where they be visitor or multiple spaces assigned per unit kind of thing. So our bylaw requires a minimum number, which is 1.25 per unit. The applicant's proposing 1.09 per unit, but it would be up to the operator to determine who uses those. But the number of accessible spaces is not negotiable. It's also not being proposed to be amended. So based on the number of units, they would require 4 accessible spaces, and they have located them adjacent to the main entrance as well.
That's one of my questions. I got 2 more. Because I looked at the plan here, and the second question is, and I didn't see it, and I'm just trying to think forward. Is there a possibility of an EV charging station? Because, at 100 spaces there, it just seems to me, if we're trying to get more green, has there been any discussion about that even?
Through your worship, to Councillor Keith, there are a number of EV spaces identified on the site plan. So I know that that's been contemplated by the owner. Those spaces are here. So again, it would be up to the owner if those are dedicated EV or if they're like EV but available for regular parking as well. But that certainly has been contemplated.
And one other question, my final question, I hope, for your sake at least, and maybe mine, is when I read that report, it did sound to me, and maybe I've misunderstood, but it sounded to me that there's always the possibility, if this is approved, down the road, if one wanted to change that from rental units to condos. Is that a possibility?
Through your worship, it's certainly a possibility. When there's a change of ownership from obviously there'd be one owner, one entity owning the property, to a condominium ownership, that would require council review. So I did note in the report that should the building be occupied at that point, there are tests in the official plan with regard to the number or percentage rather of vacancies throughout town. So if we find ourselves like today in a bit of a housing crisis, it would be a little bit there would be additional studies required prior to a condo conversion. Whereas I believe it's around 3%. So for example, if the vacancy rate in town's over 3%, it would be a little bit easier to condominiumize. But where there are challenges with housing in general, additional information would be needed.
Thank you.
Any further? Oh, Councillor Ashford?
Sorry, just one more question about just being adjacent to Hands and just up from the daycare there. Certainly, like I know my kid is gonna love this project because she's gonna be out there watching these trucks and machines and go, right? So the educators might not like it during nap time, but the rest of the time it's just gonna be a riot to get it for them outside. But is there any special provisions that need to happen when you're kind of adjacent to the high school kids probably not gonna be as much in danger as causing danger, but on the other side, is there any special provisions that go into place for that kind of stuff?
Through your worship to Councillor Ashford, there are like fencing requirements that would be implemented through the site plan agreement. Obviously, the building's going to be a little bit taller than than the fence. We do limit fencing to, I believe it's 2 meters. But that would be implemented through site plan in addition to any vegetative buffering that's proposed as well.
Awesome, thank you.
Anything further? Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. None opposed. We'll go back to 931, moved by Councillor Borneman, seconded by Councillor McDonald. The council accepts the bid from Duncor Enterprises Incorporated for double surface treatment on Smith Crescent in the amount of $89,686.84, excluding taxes, this being the lowest compliant bid of 2 bids received, and that the project be funded from the 2025 capital paving budget. Any discussion? Councillor Borneman?
I didn't read it in the report, Mr. Bonanza. What are we double surface treating with?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we'll be doing a double surface treatment, like we did out on Louisa Street. So like a chip and tar.
What I thought. Councillor Ashford?
So is this just to make it even more clear for myself, is this different in some way from what we did on Louisa, or is it basically the exact same deal?
So you'll be, through you, Mr. Mayor, you'll be looking at the exact same process, and then we'd be looking at next year down the road doing the ceiling on top as we did on Louisa as well.
Okay, Councillor Keith and then Councillor McCann.
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering what happens where there's potholes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So if there's any deficiencies in that base at any period of time before we put the ceiling on, it's under the contract that the contractor come back and fix those with the emulsion and that before we put the ceiling on top. So.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McCann? You're okay? Anything further? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Borneman, that council accepts the quotation from Fowler Construction for winter sand and gravel for a 3-year term in the following amounts. $22.06 for winter sand, $22 25 for A gravel and 3384 for Gabion stone and 2354 for granular M gravel. All amounts are excluding taxes per ton per order, this being the lowest of two qualified quotes received. Councillor Ashford?
Just for, I guess, I haven't been part of the, this particular kind of thing yet, but, if we're talking, this basically, instead of calling, you know, Adams or Halls or somebody when you need gravel or you need these different things, we get it kind of at a bulk rate for a 3-year term, is what we're doing here?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. So it saves us for every time we need a load of gravel, hunting, quoting, that kind of thing. So we heard the comment from Councillor McCann last year that we were gonna stretch these out a little bit longer, so we took a look at it. You know, 5 years, we seemed a little too long, so we've stretched it from a year with an additional year pending to a 3-year term, and yeah, so we can supply through those 3 years.
Do they bring it to us or do we have to go pick it up?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is delivered to our site, so. And with the winter sand, this is blended and stacked for the winter sand in the contract as well, so.
Good. Anything further? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McCann, whereas the retaining wall improvement project is divided into the following components. Part A, William Street works scheduled to commence in 2026. Parts B and C, Miller Street, Church Street works scheduled to commence in 2025. Whereas retaining wall replacements now include requirements for water, sewer, and storm improvements, which have been identified as a priority for Part A. Now therefore be resolved, Council grants pre-budget approval to award the contract for Part A William Street retaining wall, sanitary, water, and storm works, ensuring that Part A will be set to commence in the fiscal year of 2026, and that $351,553 of the 2025 budget for retaining walls be carried forward to 2026 for Part A, and that the 2026 budget allocate funding as follows: $375,345.01 from Ontario Community Infrastructure Funds, $15,847 from the Wastewater Stabilization Reserve, and $257,904.89 from the Water Stabilization Reserve, and the council accepts the bid from Wayne Hall Construction for Part A, B, and C for retaining wall improvements on William, Miller, and Church Street in the amount of $1,398,401.99, excluding taxes, and this being the lowest compliant bid of 4 bids received. Discussion. Councillor Ashford and then Councillor Keith.
I found this one a little confusing when I was going through, probably the Part A, Part B got me all mixed up, but what, it sounds like, so what part of William Street basically are we looking at?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll do a quick synopsis. So Part B and C will be Miller and Church Street. So at the end of Rosetta Cross, we still have a couple of those little red walls, I like to call them, that need to be replaced. There's the wall beside and behind the firewall that's in fire hall, sorry, that's in disrepair. It's fell down a bit, and the back is not in good condition. That's in that as well. On Miller Street, when you come around Mary Street to Miller, there's that wall that runs along there, as well as the one beside it that goes up into those apartment buildings that are on that as well. That is slated for this year to be finished. We didn't think we had the time, and we wanted to put this all together to be more cost effective. So for William Street, this is the zone basically from where those parking stalls were added on William Street. So we had a discussion about that. We didn't have time to do it, so we're looking to move that till next year. We wanted to put new water, storm, and sanitary in around that wall if we're putting a new wall, due to the fact is you don't want to put a new wall in have infrastructure fail and have issues. So we looked at funding, and for part B and C is covered in this year's budget. There will be a carryover because we won't use all of that, but we do have to add in the 2025 budget to the carryover from 2024 to do part A for William Street.
Clear as mud now? Okay.
He means the carryover,
Yeah.
from 2025 to 2020.
Sorry, yes, sorry,
Yeah.
all right, sorry.
Throw another year in there and I tell you.
Yeah.
Counselor Keith.
Yes, thank you. Yes, part of my question has to do again with the Part A, and I think you've answered some of it, but yeah, which is that when you put up this request for a proposal, you thought as being more efficient by putting in all sections, so Part A, Part B, et cetera, even though some would not be done till 2026. And I can appreciate that on the one side of the coin. But on the other side of the coin, if we were to make a practice of this, and the word is practice of it, for all projects, then it would seem to me that why are we doing budgets for each year? So, you know, that is what is concerning. I just think that if when this request for proposal was done, was it mentioned? I don't, maybe it's me, but I don't recall when we were looking at capital projects that was also a thought of something being done in 2026. Perhaps it was, and I just don't recall it. What's the scoop?
Mr. Kearns?
Through your worship, so the idea of tendering when we're doing this type of unique work in town is if we can do it all at once, typically mobilization costs will be reduced. It got a little bit complicated when we got looking at the scope. We ended up, you know, there's walls behind the fire hall. We're trying to get all of this work done at once. So this one's a bit unique beyond, well, for instance, the work at SPS2 will be a multi-year project due to the scope and the volume of work. This one, the scope got a little bit larger with the water and sewer and storm work underneath. It's a complicated area on William Street to work in as well. So I think, you know, when staff looked at it, trying to have a contractor commit to finishing it all in 1 year probably wasn't reasonable, given the complications of the work underneath the wall while maintaining access to everybody's homes along William Street. So it got very complicated. So this one's a bit of a unique thing. This is certainly not something that you'll see as a matter of course for us going forward.
Counselor Borneman?
So I'm more interested in the job itself. These are not as large a rebuilds as the ones on Gibson and William Street in one piece. Are we using similar materials? Are they going to last longer than the stuff that has been used previously? And the only other comment I would make is you've couple more projects and we can pretty much put the town on bicycles, because we will have construction going on in every neighborhood, will we not, Mr. Kearns?
Through your worship. So I think everybody's probably witnessed the degradation of those colored walls, or as Mr. Benaza, the kind of, we call them the pink walls. That block in particular, that manufacturer is no longer in business. That block, I would suggest in hindsight now, as the town was an inappropriate choice, given the size of some of the walls, and unfortunately, the materials certainly weren't robust at all. And I'm not faulting anybody in the past, they couldn't have known that. We have talked to the manufacturers of these blocks. We've talked to the engineering firms that have used these blocks elsewhere. And we are talking to the manufacturer on an ongoing basis to ensure that we have a robust product that's going to hopefully outlast all of our careers.
So is it basically the same stuff as we've been using on the larger things? And I guess the other question that should be asked, when will project A commence? When can people expect to start to see work undertaken?
Through your worship, the block is similar to what you're seeing elsewhere, and I'll defer to Mr. Bonanza to let you know when the rest of that construction work will start.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So after awarding tonight, we will hopefully with the next week, get the schedule from the contractor, and if we get all the paperwork promptly, I would suggest in the next 2 weeks, I'd hope anyways, to get going on the project, so.
Councillor Ashford?
Sorry, one more, if I recall, there's a new stormwater that just went in right in that area. Between some of the houses. If that's way too far down, okay, got it. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so you're correct, we did do an outlet there that goes out to the river. We will be coming down and tying into that new basin and outlet with the work that we were doing on William Street, so, and we will be adding, we did identify also coming down William Street, water issues, there's only one basin at the bottom. At the top of those parking spaces, we will be putting a additional basin, and we will be running it across the road as well to alleviate some of that as well, so.
Sorry, your worship, if I could just clarify, we're doing the storm work further down, not retaining walls all the way down
Correct.
to that
Yes,
outlet.
correct.
Just want to make sure that was
Yeah.
clear.
This with the project. We're good? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Ashford that the parking review Miller Street to the CN overpass on Bow Street be received for information purposes. Any discussion? Councillor Borneman?
So I think this is probably for Mr. Harris and Mr. Cairns or some combination thereof. Some effort and time, thought's been spent on this. I would hate to see this just kind of go on the shelf. What's next? What's the next step? How do we proceed from here? Is there some idea how we're moving this forward? We know parking is an issue, and it's probably only getting worse, not better as time goes on. What's next with this?
Well, the one thing I didn't see in here, and staff can correct me or shed some more light on it, is this definitely changes the scope of travel along that stretch, which means it pushes traffic back further. I never saw anything in here that said how the traffic lights were going to function, probably from, I would say, Forest Street through to James Street. And that's not discussed in this to say how that's going to work, because this narrowing it down further than what it is would push that traffic back much further. And in the summertime, it's going to really push it back. So am I wrong that that wasn't discussed in this or taken into the part of the project?
To the mayor and through to Councillor Borneman, I think it wasn't mentioned in terms of lights, but I think what they're saying is the putting parking on either side or both sides is going to reduce the flow of traffic. And, you know, that has some implications for backing up with the lights. In terms of where we go from here, the recommendation or the summary of Tatum Engineering is capsulized in the report. I could read it if that's helpful. But they're talking safety concerns as it says in the report. There's only two bridge crossings or river crossings in Parry Sound, River Street and Sigmund Street, Sigmund being an arterial road and the primary crossing. When the 400 is closed, that's where the traffic goes. Ambulances going one way, fire trucks and police going the other. There's a high degree of concern to start introducing parking and restricting the movement of traffic in other direction. If this report is received as the recommendation, then nothing more on parking on this section of Seguin or Bow Street would happen. If council chose to make a motion to do something else, I mean, that would be up to council. Other things that are being considered in terms of parking, we're trying to get a hold of the owners, not the franchise owners, but the property owners of Circle K, to see if some of their parking lot, which is never full, could be used for parking for the customers going to local businesses. We are looking at parking on Great North Road, on the riverside of Great North Road, between Trestle Brewery and the Trestle. And there's other spots that we could look at parking, but in terms of parking on either side or both sides of Seguin or Bowes, if there's not a direction coming tonight other than to receive this report, staff will move on to look at other ways to increase parking.
Councillor McCann, you were next.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, you kind of touched on some of the things that I was going to say. The summary in the engineer's report says it all for me, and there's a great deal of concern over the fact that Bow Street and Seguin Street, they are arterial, they have an arterial function. These roads, particularly Bow Street, was 4 lanes some time ago, and now we want to reduce that. Everybody knows what happens here in the summertime. We have major congestion. We don't seem to have enough lanes as it is to handle the overflow. So if you've got any kind of parking and you reduce the number of lanes on Bow Street, yeah, there's the terms of capacity, traffic backing up, safety concerns for people getting out of their cars who are parked on Bow Street. And all of the logistics about how you handle all of that to the flow in the summertime. The negative impacts would there's some mention to the respect to emergency response times. How I can't imagine the fire truck or an ambulance getting through that conjunction or that congestion in the middle of summer. So I think it's a no-brainer. I think if we're going to find parking, it's got to be off that main arterial road. I think trying to find something on Great North Road makes sense. And maybe even possibly Wakefield. It would be nice if we could secure a lot somewhere along the way where we could just put in a municipal parking lot. In the perfect world, that would happen. But as far as we're here to receive this, it's good to know this. It's a very detailed report. But to me, I would steer clear of any kind of parallel parking on Bowes.
Anything further? Councillor Keith?
My only comment would be I'm prepared to receive the report tonight. As for staff looking into other options, I can appreciate that. But I would also appreciate when they're looking into other options. It seems to me in my travels, there are times when you go to communities that the parking maybe, and it kind of goes towards Circle K, but that example, but what I'm saying is that at times the parking that is elsewhere is actually the business owner is paying for that parking, has made a partnership or agreement with another business so that that business that has a few spots, they're paying that rather than the taxpayer paying for more parking, because I think it's only reasonable at some point where one says, what do we want the taxpayers paying for? Do we want the taxpayers paying for a service that they all have a possibility of using because it's all part of the corporation? Or do we want them paying for something that has to do with a private business? I do think that option should be explored also.
So the question is, this is just for information purposes. All in favor? Any opposed? Nope, it's received. Thank you.
So a point of order then, Mr. Mayor. Based on what Councillor Keith mentioned, would we or should we have some sort of a motion to, as Councillor Borneman said, we don't want to put this on the shelf and let it collect dust. Should we direct staff to follow some of the options that Councillor Keith has mentioned?
Well, I think staff are already looking at some of those other options right now. Do we need something formal, Mr. Harris, or are we good with the fact that staff are already investigating some of those other options?
Mr. Mayor, I think we're fine. I know that I've had conversations with Mr. Kearns about parking on Great North Road. Mr. Jeff Tom, our economic development officer, is trying to get a hold of Circle K. So those wheels are in motion, and I don't believe further motion is necessary.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Item 9.4.1. Moved by Councillor Ashford, second by Councillor Keith, that the council approves the noise exemption request for 111 Isabella Street. Any discussion on that? Yes, Councillor Ashford.
The only thing I just wanted to add, it sounds like we really gotta to make this happen in order for the school to be ready. So I think we're in the right mindset. But I did want to kind of note, I feel like we're kind of under the gun a bit, that if this was occurring a little bit for a longer period of time, we might have been able to make a different choice. But from my perspective, given the situation we're in, and we're looking at September's, it's not great to be a school teacher and say September's right around the corner, right? But 7 more days of kids, right? But it's September is going to come quick, and I kind of feel like we almost have to, from this perspective, even though it's going to be a little bit extra noise for everybody in the neighborhood.
Ms. Kruger, do you have anything you need to add to it, or?
Through your worship, just in summary, it is a very short period of time, as Councillor Ashford was pointing out, that they are asking for this exemption. This is a different company doing this second phase piece of the demolition. And they have come to us and been open and having a conversation about what may be, the least impactful on the neighborhood as far as when they have asked for the exemption. So they were looking for that additional day on a Sunday to be able to work. But we had a conversation around the times and felt that 9 to 5 would have less impact than asking to work perhaps earlier hours during the week, as they initially thought, or even an early start on a Sunday. Adding that additional day, they are hopeful that they will be able to complete the demolition possibly as early as the end of July, which will shorten the time frame of the project. So that also lessens the impact on the neighborhood as much as we are adding a few additional days.
Okay, Councillor Keith.
Thank you, Ms. Kruger. I just wanted to ensure, will bylaw be checking this noise exemption? Because I know sometimes in the past, contractors have had their times, but then they kind of go over their times. And I think, I appreciate all these needs, but I also appreciate, the taxpayer, you're looking forward to the summer, it's Sunday. Yeah, probably hope by 5 o'clock, noise free. What's the scoop, please?
Certainly, through your worship. During the summer months in particular, we do have additional bylaw staff. So we will have staff available weekends, evenings to be monitoring in general. We have been paying close attention to this project throughout its completion, as obviously it does have an impact on the neighborhood. So that is definitely something we'll be monitoring, and we will have staff the hours of, of the regular construction day, as well as if the exemption is granted on the Sundays.
Anything further? Councilor McDonald?
Thank you, worship. Ms. Kruger. They mentioned having dust mitigation strategies. What is that exactly? Are they gonna like soak the building to minimize dust? I know there's some questionable material in that building, and the rate that they're gonna have to take it down is a little concerning that there may be some toxic dust or whatever released into the air. How do they mitigate that?
So they did include, sorry, through your worship, they did include some dust mitigation measures within their demolition permit to the town. It does include using water as a dust suppressant. There's also some, specific tools and separating material and stuff that they do as well that will help to cut down. But mainly, we're looking at watering of the site, washing of the trucks coming in and out of the site, things like that, in order to keep that dust down.
Okay. All in favor then? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Ashford. Whereas in 1996, the government of Canada declared June 21st National Aboriginal Day, renamed in 2017 to National Indigenous Peoples Day to celebrate the contribution of Indigenous peoples to Canadian society as Canada's first peoples and to recognize their different cultures. And whereas in the Constitution of Canada, Aboriginal peoples of Canada include First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. And whereas the Indigenous peoples of Canada have made and continue to make valuable contribution to Canadian society, and it is considered appropriate that there be in each year a day to mark, celebrate these contributions. And whereas many Indigenous people celebrate the summer solstice, which has an important symbolism within their cultures, and whereas the town of Parry Sound will continue its efforts to strengthen partnerships with other levels of government, community organizations, as well as the public and private sectors to honor and protect the rights of Indigenous peoples. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Parry Sound hereby proclaims June 21st, 2025 to be National Indigenous Peoples Day in the town of Parry Sound. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Ashford, second by Councillor Keith, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a transfer payment agreement with His Majesty the King in the right of Ontario, as represented by the Minister of Infrastructure regarding funding under the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund Intake 2, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? It's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? It's carried. Moved by Councillor Ashford, second by Councillor Keith, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Who just wants to give a quick synopsis of this one? Ms.
Sure,
Phillips.
I will. So tonight, the transfer payment agreement for the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund is before council. The program will provide a grant for approximately 13.1 million to go towards construction of a new sewage pumping station near Champagne Street. And the cost of the project is expected at approximately 20.6 million. 73% of the maximum eligible cost of 17.9 million are expected for reimbursement. The funding for the entire project is broken down in the budget section of the report. And there's a resolution before council to request quarterly reimbursement just to help with cash flows and that sort of thing. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilor McCann?
I'm not sure. Is this over and above what's been budgeted for? Is this like a bonus for the town?
So through the mayor, so the grant has already been budgeted for, and the tender has already been awarded. The cost of the project and that tender required an additional 2.6 million from long-term borrowing. So an application will come forward to council for that borrowing in the near future. And that is in addition to the budget, but that's already been approved by council. So
Thanks.
for your information.
Councilor Ashford?
I just wanted to comment again that for when you look at that list of applicants for intake number 2, and for us to be on that, to be one of the successful applicants, it doesn't just happen. And just a reminder again today, when Miss Phillips put her hand up as the one that can give a synopsis of this, that our town's got such an awesome team of people who work together in order to make this happen, that you said pretty much everybody in this room had to do quite a bit. It's not just put an application in and get your money. It is a lot of work on everybody's behalf. And then it was nice to see you're working on that too, Ms. Phillips. So it's glad to see this project going and everybody's able to do it together. Thank you.
Anything further? All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Ashford. Council of the Corporation of Town of Parry Sound request that the Minister of Infrastructure permit claims for the HEWSF intake 2 be submitted and reimbursed on a quarterly basis to assist the town with cash flow. I think that's pretty straightforward. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councilor McDonald, second by Councilor Borneman, that bylaw number 2025-7518 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of agreement with Sound Holdings Incorporated for parking enforcement services at 60 Bow Street, Parry Sound, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councilor McDonald, second by Councilor Borneman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Councilor McCann?
So I'm glad to see this come forward. So I expect that this is with regard to enforcing illegal parking at the medical building then on Bow Street. So, and I think this idea, it has kind of come up in discussion before, because I know from my own personal experience, when you're transporting people in and out, you've got cars parked there for a long period of time. And I've been told that delivery trucks, sometimes they just have to leave and come back later because they can't get close enough. So it has been a problem, not all the time, but there are times when it's when it is a problem. So we are addressing this. Is this something that our bylaw department will be enforcing on a regular basis, or is it up to the property owner to call our bylaw people to come and write a ticket if that's the case?
Ms. Kruger?
Through your worship, this agreement will contract essentially the town's enforcement services to deal with any parking violations at the property. So there has been discussions with the property owner as far as how the service will work. They're looking for proactive enforcement on an agreed upon schedule. So it won't be a call-in basis. It would be regular visits in order to address the problem. But obviously, there's an opportunity for those terms of the agreement to be discussed as you know, as we're doing enforcement. If it's successful and that does help address the parking issues, we may not need to be there as often, and that is something that we will sort of be. It'll always be a working document as far as how long are we or how often we're attending. But yeah, this will help deal with the parking situations there. Private properties are, of course, governed by private property owners, and their enforcement of any type of violations like parking violations are their responsibility. So in this case, they have reached out to the town to enter into this agreement so that we can assist them with the parking issues.
So on a follow-up to that, then, will there be signage that says enforcement is by the Town of Parry Sound bylaw?
They will have signage on site that identifies, you know, that there's no parking in those areas and that it's being enforced, yes, by bylaw.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Keith?
Thank you, Ms. Kruger. I just wanted to clarify, will there be monitoring of the amount of time that is being spent on enforcement at that spot? Because my concern is bylaw also has a number of responsibilities, and I appreciate we want to be a good partner here, but I would like to know what the monitoring will be so that we're being fair to all of us.
Your worship, certainly that will be monitored. They are, you know, within the contract paying for enforcement services. So we will be keeping track, and the visits will be an agreed upon, you know, approximate length of time and number of times, you know, either per day or per week, depending on their needs. As a part of the contract, it also does mention that, you know, bylaw may have to change that schedule from time to time as the town's priorities and enforcement for, you know, municipal properties do sometimes have to take precedent, but that we will offer this service on a pay per service basis essentially. So it will be tracked, and that will be you know, how the charge costs are incurred for the property owner based on the time that bylaw is spending.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Yes, that's right. So we have the direction where we close, Councillor Borneman, with regard to the twinning of Highway 69. And so mover and seconder for the direction. Okay. Councillor Borneman is moving it. And I think you pretty much got, yeah, RMPP and that sort of thing, and the minister, yeah. Rebecca's got it all under control. Yeah. All in favor? It's carried. We're good. Moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor McCann, the bylaw number 2025-7519 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor McDonald, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the town of Parry Sound Council Chambers at 52 Seguin Street, entrance via Gibson Street. Will be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. Council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes, and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca and use the search bar. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following regular council meeting. And for Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. And remember, it's Wednesday, July 2nd at 7 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.